let me use this strong word, spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, let me tell you my interpretation of that. It's I and my friends and many people around me share a view of the world which is not much known by the large majority of the population. And it's a view of the world that is neither, the world is made by little atoms bouncing with one another, and that's it. So, emotions, the sense of lies, whatever, that's bullshit that come later, is neither that, is not that, but is neither, the material world is irrelevant. There is a spiritual world with, God, morality, and thing. That's what reality is. Somehow, a lot of people are unhappy with both
Hmm.
because they don't believe the spiritual world too much anymore, because we're in a secular society which doesn't hold anymore for a large number of people, and less and less and less.
Mm-hmm.
But neither people find convincing a sort of cold and ground scientism which has no hold for meaning, for emotion, for our aim, for what we are as thinking and desiring and suffering. So the fact that somehow people find in my book a perspective where the two things can very well stay together,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no contradiction between one another, is what a lot of people jumps in and say, oh, but then there are people who can, think that what matters for me is my emotions, but also there's nothing in contradiction with fundamental science there. I think that this is bringing together that make people react.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding this goal that you have in your writing of getting to the essence of a concept, I would think this would be uniquely challenging when you're talking about something like time, because the average person will probably talk about time at least once in a typical day. So there must be a lot that you need to strip away, because the average person has a lot of assumptions that they're making about this word time. Can you tell us about what that process was like when you're describing time?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I wrote a book just uniquely, entirely about time, and that was not an easy to write book, because exactly for the reason you're asking, you're pointing to. And when I decide how to write this book, I exactly ask myself this question. And so the first half, the longest half of the book, is just one by one. One chapter after chapter, demolishing something we give granted for time,
Mm-hmm.
and on good grounds, on things we know. So we think that time has this property, and it seems obvious to that. That's the way we think. And now I tell you, it's not the case, and I'll show why we know it's not the case. So the first part of the book, it's in part, it's just a way of telling Boltzmann theory, of telling Einstein special relativity, putting the various pieces of the story together. But not just for talking about physics, for talking, look, what this imply with respect to our notion of time. Special relativity definitely changes our notion of time. Notion of present everywhere in the universe doesn't hold. But it's hard to think the world without a notion of present everywhere in the universe. The question, what is going on right now on Andromeda, the galaxy, is meaningless. There's no
Mm-hmm.
meaning in what is going on right now. There's no now in Andromeda. So they're asking, what is going on here in Beijing? I mean, no, we're not in Beijing, so there's no here in Beijing. Beijing is elsewhere. So to the book was designed exactly to address what you are saying, to take away one by one the presuppositions of people that people give for granted in science. And as some of my colleagues, which are very reflective, and they read the book, there's absolutely nothing they learn because they have gone through that. But there are a lot of my colleagues that teach special relativity and never have stopped and thinking what actually they're teaching. And I think that's wrong. I mean, physics is interesting because it tells us something about the world, not just because you write equations and then you make prediction and it matches with what you measure.
Mm-hmm. And
I
are you yet at a stage where you can give this 1 or 2 sentence definition that's the core of what time is?
No, with time is very complicated. and the reason is exactly because we haven't got to the end of understanding it.
Mhm.
There are things about time which I think we're generally confused. A lot of things we have figured out with total clarity, like the non-existence of a present everywhere in the universe.
Mhm.
Um, but there are issues about how to think about time in a fully consistent way with everything we know, which I don't think we have figured out
Mhm.
yet.
I
Even the
found
direction of time is complicated because we have connected it to entropy, to the macroscopic
Mhm.
description, but there are definitely holes in our understanding, in my opinion.
I found that book, The Order of Time, to really make my brain meld and squish in other directions. And I found it ironic. I was listening to the audiobook, and at one point I was rushing somewhere, and something you wrote about time made me think, why am I rushing anywhere? Or rush is an illusion. But I appreciated your writing of that book. I also really liked Benedict Cumberbatch reading it to me. That was a nice
It's
experience.
marvelous.
Boy, it helps when these concepts are
He's
so mind
astonishingly
bending.
good.
Yeah,
Yes,
he
yes.
really is.
I've been listening to his voice and saying, "Wow, who wrote this wonderful things? I mean, that's too good for certainly not me." He has a way of making it
Sing.
comprehensible, but also uh, it's like it's talking to you and telling you like a friend. It's
Yeah,
quite wonderful.
yeah. Well, we actually have another student question about your books. Do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, we have this question was sent in by a PhD student here at Perimeter.
This is Matt Duchenne, a student at IQC in Perimeter. I'm wondering, how did you first get started into writing science books, and how has that writing helped your own research? Do you find writing a technical paper or a more accessible book more challenging?
So what's trickier, a detailed scientific paper or a popular piece of science writing for a general audience?
Probably a book for a general audience
Why is that?
because roughly you write a scientific paper after you figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
So you just get confused in a problem and either alone or with somebody else in physics. We work mostly in little groups of 2 or 3 in theoretical physics. You sort of come out and some point is clear and then you write it down and you write it down what you have understood.
Mm-hmm.
So the writing is relatively easy. I'm picky. I'm complicated in writing scientific articles. I try to write them clear, so I spend time rewriting, perhaps more than what I should or could. But the writing is you know what you're saying exactly. While when you're writing a book, you still don't know what you're saying. You're making up what you're saying in the writing itself. So for me, it's complicated, and writing for me it's a complicated process. So it's not my books are the result of a large number of revision
Mm-hmm.
and the large number of cancellations. They take away a lot because they say, "No, this is not useful for what comes," and that's just superfluous. So I take away, and then the same phrase I rewrite it 10 times. I say, "No, that's not clear. I mean, is there a way to say it better?" So
I would.
that's a harder part of writing for me.
I was just going to say, for you, it seems that this must be particularly challenging because you're not just writing a book for the general public. As you said, you're hoping that your book will be influential for the general public and also for experts in the field, even though the material is not technical or maybe doesn't rely on math. So I would assume writing something that can be a good fit for both of those audiences must be very challenging.
Yes, it is, and I have these 2 readers in mind: the super expert one who knows everything, and 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 the the one who knows nothing, which is good because thinking that the super expert one is what warns me for not saying something. Which is, no, if I say that, he's going to complain, and thinking about the prototypical grandmother who doesn't know anything. Stops me from saying things. Oh, that's too complicated. I mean, how can anybody get this point? So I always have this
Mm.
struggle. So this simplifies because it gives me guidance. But yes, it's also a complication. Because I'm putting my own ideas in the books. Mostly because it's my own perspective of things. I've written a book on quantum mechanics, Helgoland, which is entirely from the perspective of Heisenberg, Born, Dirac, rather than from the perspective of Schrödinger. So it's taken quantum mechanics because I think it's the most interesting thing. I'm not the only one, but there are people who think different. Who think, no, quantum mechanics is all about the wave equation, Schrödinger equation, the wave function evolving, that's all there is. I think that's wrong. So I give a different perspective. So my books are a way of defending a perspective. But the two things help one another because in the moment in which to try to explain something simple, you get clarity yourself. I mean, for me, it's not an exercise; it's an exercise of science. I feel I'm doing science when I'm doing that. I'm clarifying my mind. And reading at the great masters who are infinitely better than me. I mean, reading Galileo when he writes these books. It seems to me he's doing exactly the same thing. I mean, he's talking to people. That's a book written for the cultivated person of the European Renaissance in the 17th century, not for his colleagues astronomers, because it explains things one by one. But obviously, it's debating with his colleagues astronomers in the book. He's making the subtle points of the argumentation, proving him right and them wrong in that book. So he is doing both things. And that's what makes that book so great. Now, of course, I'm not Galileo and I'm not writing the dialogue of the two great systems. But it's this kind of popular science, which other people are doing, not which is presenting ideas in a way which are comprehensible to defend these ideas, which I'm trying to do.
Are you working on any books now?
Sorry?
Are you working on a book now?
Yeah, I am, but I'm not sure I should talk about that.
Are you always working on one book or another?
No. I have not been writing for 1 year or more. I just stopped completely. I'm under strong pressure, of course, from publishers and things for writing more. And now I think there's something I want to do. Let me just give you this. I'm not covering a large portion of physics. I want to do the narration, tell the story of how a theoretical physicist like me get into a specific problem, get fascinated by the problem, work through and come out with some ideas and struggling on. So whether this particular thing is right or wrong is irrelevant. I want to tell how is theoretical science in the doing.
Is it sort of humanizing the process or putting
yes,
making it relatable to non-science?
Yes. To show what is actually going on, including changing mind and realizing things didn't work and so on and so forth.
Excellent. Well, I don't actually have any further questions. We've kept you for more than an hour, I believe.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
I'll just ask a question I always ask people when I interview them. What keeps you up at night these days? What problems or challenges are rolling around in your brain?
A very last night I was awake with my brain going around.
So it was a relevant question.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a beautiful experiment in quantum gravity, in fact, is being proposed, and there's some people who are questioning the way to think about that, and I think they're wrong. So I'm trying to find out a right theoretical description of this experiment. And in doing that, it's fun because it's basic physics, but it's writing things in a new ways, and there are technical issues, technical problems. So I keep going around these things here. So it's not a big, huge question. It's a very small, specific question.
Well, we'll have to have you back another time so you can tell us the results of that. So thank you again. This has just been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very nice.